Abby here, and today we have a new episode in the art review series. And today we'll be checking out the work of Silmo at Silmo1. The artwork is interesting because it's in line with what I have an inclination for more painterly types of artwork. I mean, I love line work. I love like full rendered images, but I do have a bias for more impressionistic, painterly types of artwork because I feel like it's more raw. It's more of a personal taste, but yeah. So we'll check out the work of Silmo1. Heavy on the anime, which I do like. Now in this case, we do have this chick. By the way, I'll be linking all of the links in the description below. So if you want to check out this artist's work, just hit the links or check out the description below. Now, this is a character named, I believe, Power. I have been watching Chainsaw Man. It's an anime series, and this specific piece, I believe, is based off of the recent episode 4, which released last Tuesday. And as you can see, there's not a lot of line work in the finished product, which I do like. Obviously, in the beginning, there's going to be some kind of rough sketch and such, but in the end, I like how it's super raw and it's not even that clean, which I am a fan of. Sometimes if it's too clean, if it's too fully rendered, I am somewhat intimidated. And I mean, I'm not intimidated like I'm scared. It's just a bit too much for my eyes. It's a bit scary. Well, shit, maybe I am intimidated, but yeah, it's kind of hard painting this way. Painting anime types of content is a bit hard because oftentimes for the face tends to look somewhat flat compared to the other things. For example, the clothing, the fabrics, and sometimes if you like render the tits or something, it can be a bit too 3D. I mean, it's nice, but if you compare the rendering of the tits to the face, oftentimes the face looks somewhat flat, so you have to find the right balance of this. But I do think this artist found a way to, it doesn't nothing looks off in this image, which I do like. This chick is smoking, so that's interesting. And when it comes to these sorts of artworks, there's not a lot of, this is very common in anime, not a lot of texture work in the actual artwork. Most of it is just raw, and a lot of the value range comes from individual brushstrokes, like plain, a basic, no texture brushstrokes, but because there's so much of it, it looks so full. It does have that kind of gouache-like kind of approach. If you've seen any like old school gouache paintings or renderings, it's pretty solid, the value range is somewhat separated from dark to light. Like there's no natural gradients, like blending isn't really common in like gouache artwork, or it's not as, like it's pretty common to see like the edge of things. You can see that in this piece as well. And yeah, it's not always clean, which I do like. It's very impressionistic, very raw. And a lot of his work or her work or this artist's work, it feels like there's way more storytelling involved. It's somewhat cinematic in a way, which is like it pulls you in. It's not just like a chick with tits. I mean, that's great, but there's a lot more storytelling here. It's not like a comic necessarily or a panel page and such or narrative art. It's almost like a movie, like a film. Like this could be some kind of book cover. It can summarize, or it's like a snapshot of an entire world or scene or story. I like the compositions overall in the work. The colors are somewhat muted. They're not that saturated. And for example, for this piece, it's not fully colored, but there is some storytelling here. And I'm not a fan of how the top of the head is in the border. It kind of makes it look more flat. But yeah, I do like the composition. And it's hard because not only do you have to paint, but all of your painting has to be based on a good sketch beforehand. So figuring out the right composition, it's something. Here we have, I believe, another Chainsaw Man character, not sure. And as you can see, not a lot of line work in the end, heavy on the colors, and almost all of the images are just full of color. Like there's no empty space and such. Like it's meant to be like it's meant to be, it's supposed to be full and somewhat finished. I mean, the artwork itself, like art is never really finished, but the statement is there. The lighting's also pretty cool. It helps with the composition. And I like how the colors are somewhat changing. Like for example, for this frame or for this door, the shadow is not the same as the one in the wall. So maybe some use of layering. It's hard to say because I can't find videos necessarily of this artist's process, but if you zoom in, it's so painterly and I like it. Now maybe this chick is some kind of angel perhaps. Who knows? Look at how it's very gouache-like. Again, check out old gouache illustrations or paintings or sketches. It's so similar. It's almost like an editorial type of illustration. Now, this is one of his or her most popular pieces. It's very sketchy, very raw, but the lighting's there. It's very moody. Maybe that's something that it's common in his work, the moodiness. Nice foot shot there, but maybe there's a bit of blur in the background, so maybe a bit of layering involved, but most of it is just raw painting. Again, with the lighting, this chick is some kind of fairy. She's kind of like a miniature thing. She's carrying some kind of teddy shark. Stuffed toy. Now this one's more photographic because he did or she did add some kind of flare, like lens flare. This one's more, so yeah, lots of composition work, very painterly, very editorial illustration-esque, very cinematic. Now this one I believe 98K. Fuck. If you zoom in, let's check it out. Look at the way the folds are done. Again, there's not a lot of texture, there's no like photo bashing and such, but it's like, even if it's not that detailed, if you kind of simplify it, it would still look good because the composition is there, the story is there. This maid is, I mean, all she's doing is picking up some kind of book or CD. It looks more like a book, but the maid outfit does pull you in. The storytelling, the framing, the composition. So there's a bit of lighting here from the, or in between the shelves. So it's somewhat sunset, and maybe she's just taking a break, and then on her break, she just wants to buy a book. It's a pretty simple story, but it's so interesting. Like what's so cool about anime is that even if it's like mundane, even if it's like the slice of life types of content, it can make daily things look cool and beautiful, or it can remind you that there is this beauty in basic stuff, basic moments. And yeah, here we have a train scene. Here we have like an anime painting within a photograph. Perhaps this is Makima from Chainsaw Man, hair down. Again, painterly as hell. Now, if you notice in other like anime-esque artworks, the hair is usually done obviously with more line work, and it's somewhat separated into like chunks, and you can see like a lot of shading. But in this case, like painting the hair is something that it's hard, but if you get it right, it looks cool. Again, with the face, you have to balance the whole 2D concept with the 3D painting approach. Now you can tell even if the face has the proportions of an anime character, it still somewhat looks 3D. So some emphasis, some definition on the nose. The eyes are kind of flat, very stylistic, but it works. Here we have another nice composition. I believe the student is sketching something. I mean, it's so cool. Even though, again, the lighting is pretty good, or she's pretty good with the lighting. So yeah, I recommend you check out this artist, Silmo1, at Silmo1. I'll be linking I believe there's a Pixiv site as well. Obviously I'll be including the Twitter link to this artist, and yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the art review series. I want to make the art review more, like, less super analytical and more just sharing my, somewhat favorite, but artists that I find interesting. And I want to create this kind of daily content where you can just kind of see what's out there if you're interested. I want to make this series more conversational and less of a tutorial or less of a commentary thing. So yeah, check out this. Check out this artist. If you're into the more painterly style, gouache-like style, you're not into the whole line work, and you're somewhat rough, sketchy like me, check out Silmo1, at Silmo1. Bye.